I need help. I don't really know how to put it correctly. It all feels very strange, and I'm seriously doubting my own consciousness. I'm an Indian working in KSA for the last 9 years and haven't been able to take a vacation for the last 4 years, working continuously because of COVID and shit. When I reached India last week after a long journey, I called my friends to meet at our usual fast food joint, and we were talking about so many things, and I was trying to catch up with what's happening around our locality. Then I proceed to ask them about a new football turf I saw on the way and suggested we should go play there sometime. My friends agreed to that with a puzzled expression. I started to ask them about our local football club. Are they still using the orange jersey like they used to? Who are still playing on the team? Which tournament was it we last played? They did answer all these questions, but at the end they asked me, why am I talking about football? I laughed at them and said because we loved football, and I, along with another one of our friends, were the only local boys who used to play for the club when they participated in big tournaments. And I reminded them how big the celebrations for the 2010 Football World Cup were we had in our village. They looked at each other and laughed at me and said I've gone mad. I kept telling them about some tournaments and how I am certain other players and performers and some specific instances. Their reaction was the same as before. According to them, I was never into football and I have never even been an average player. And some of the incidents I mentioned did really happen, but I was never part of it. Now I'm pissed and confused at the same time. I know I was a good player. I know I played for that club, but these fuckers keep telling me I wasn't. But there is another thing. I know I played for my college team, and there's one guy from my place who was my senior in college. He must have known about me, or at least seen me playing for the college team, so I asked my friend to call this guy and ask him about me and football. He answered the phone, and like all my other friends, he said he has never seen me play football. But I have something else to prove my point. Photos. I've uploaded some of the college team photos when we won a tournament. I proceed to open my Facebook and scroll through the photos. Scrolling down and down and down, there is no fucking photo. I clearly remember the photos with our Real Madrid jersey, but it wasn't there. We decided to end this conversation there and left for home. I was confused but didn't talk to anybody about this. And the next morning I got a call from a courier service for the package I have sent from KSA. Now I remembered something. I had sent my football shoe in that cargo. I used to play near my company camp with that same shoe. I received the package, took it home, opened it, and fuck, there is no football shoe in there. Now I am seriously pissed and call my company people in KSA, and they said they have never seen me playing football. I called my college friends. They have never seen me playing football. I asked my family. Same. I'm pretty damn sure what I think about me is real, and I know it's only been a week, but I think everybody around me has gone through some eternal sunshine shit and their mind got erased or something, or I am in deep trouble and need help. Update 1. My mother gave me a bunch of clothes which, according to her, I left here when I went back to KSA 4 years ago. Guess what? I have no recollection of owning that bunch. It somewhat fits me, given it's 4 years old, and as far as I remember, I use ready-made shirts. All the shirts she has given me are tailor-made, which is very unlike me. Update 2. I went to the turf with my friends. There were a bunch of guys warming up to play. Some of them I knew before. I had a little chat and joined them and fucking killed the game. I was seriously doubting myself before, but not anymore. I know who I am, and I know what I am saying is true. The frustrating part is that my friends who were with me, saying that I must have been playing with some Saudi guys for the past 4 years, they still don't believe me. Update 3. Lots of people are recommending me to consult a doctor. It made me remember one incident that happened while I was in the college team. It was a training session, and I fell down while controlling the ball, and the guy next to me tried to clear the ball, but he missed it and kicked me in my ribs. I shrugged it off and kept playing. After the session, we were changing to leave, and I felt a pain in my ribs, and I called my trainer. He called an ambulance, and I got admitted in the hospital, and they were doing some tests. I don't remember the names, but it had the clip-like thingy to attach to my finger. I was fine, but they wanted me to be in observation for 24 hours. I remember my father and uncle being there after I informed them. I remember my college friends being there on the next day. Let's see if anybody remembers this. Update 4. As I expected, nobody remembered anything. I went to the hospital to check the record. No records. Update 5. I met my trainer. I asked him about the incident, even though he confirmed the incident really happened, but a couple of things I got wrong, according to him. Number 1, it wasn't an ambulance, but his own car. Number 2, the guy who got injured wasn't me, but some other kid. I was never part of the team. I live on a residential street in the suburbs, and it's usually pretty quiet. Lately, we've been hearing a droning sound, kind of like a siren going off in the distance, but I thought it could be a bomber. There's an Air National Guard base around, and I know they're having a 4th of July show involving this specific type of bomber. It happens at night, but yesterday we heard it around 7 p.m., so it was still light out. It had been raining all day, so there were puddles on the street. I went to the front door to see if I could pinpoint at least where the noise was coming from, and as I turned to look right, I saw it, clear as day. An older-looking car, think 60s, 70s Lincoln Cadillac, with square tail lights, turning to pull into the driveway of the house across the street from 2 houses down. Except there was no car, and I just saw the rear end and tail lights reflected in the puddle. When I told my wife, she joked, "I hope. It's probably a portal, but if something happens, I just hope we can get back." The sound stopped shortly after that. Okay, so I've been on Reddit for quite some time, and I'm always lurking and reading other posts on various subreddits and whatnot, and this is my first post. This happened like 5 minutes ago, and I immediately wanted to share. So I have one black cat, that's it. I'm in my bedroom eating something on my bed. The door is cracked, so my cat tries to come in. I say not right now and shoo him off because I'm eating. I watch him go into the living room and close my door. Not even 2 minutes later, I'm chomping away and I see him come out from under the bed to the side of my bed. I'm like, what the hell? My door is not open since I shut it and there's no other way for him to get in. I'm just flabbergasted. So much so that I stopped eating to make sure I saw right. Sure enough, he was under the bed staring at me like I'm the weird one. Needless to say, I don't have answers, but I know many of you have experienced this same phenomenon. This is a first for me. This happened in 2011. My wife and I met relatives in Hawaii. We all lived in different states. We did some scuba diving. The last dive we did was from the hotel we were staying at. I used my dive flashlight. It is big, heavy, and bright blue. We got back to our rooms after the dive, and I could not find my dive flashlight. I thought I must have left it at the dive shop. I went back. They said they hadn't seen it, but looked around anyway. No flashlight. I looked all around the room. My wife, sister, brother-in-law, and my mom all looked. No flashlight. I was upset because those things are expensive. The next day, I packed up all my dive gear into my dive bag. It's a special suitcase for dive gear. I didn't pack the flashlight because I didn't have it. A few months later, I opened my dive bag at home, and the flashlight was right on top. I definitely did not pack it in there. Definitely a glitch in the Matrix. Whenever I eat or put on my retainer, I take off all my jewelry, consisting of 4 bracelets and 3 rings. Last night, when I was about to go to bed, I noticed that all the rings I always wear were missing, nowhere to be found, even with me frantically searching everywhere and retracing my steps. I texted my mom to let me know if she found them anywhere and proceeded to say something along the lines of, "Any spirit guides or positive entities, if you can help find my rings, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you," out loud. To replicate the feeling of wearing a ring, since I'm so used to said feeling, I put on another one I never wear and proceeded to go to sleep. Upon waking, I find that all 3 rings I was missing were on my fingers, not in the placements I have them in, though. But regardless of this, I had asked my mom and dad if they put my rings on me in my sleep. Note, my dad was unaware that I had lost them, but I thought nothing of that when asking him, to which they both said no. And so this left me feeling confused and somewhat scared, since I have no idea who or what could have done that. And I know for a fact I wasn't tripping and went to sleep with them on, considering the replacement ring I wore before I went to sleep was still on me in the morning. Anyone have any explanation as to what might have happened, even if it doesn't sound necessarily believable? So I'm the manager of a bar in Southeast USA, and we just recently shut down to remodel. My co-workers and I had our hammers and were tearing down old fixtures and hauling away rubble. My other few co-workers left me alone inside so they could take items to our storage unit. While they were gone, I found 2 lost forms of ID of the same man under the mess. One was a regular driver's license, and the other was a fire department identification card of some sort. I then went to find the man on Facebook and shot him a message about both cards being found. We had mutual friends. So then I tuck my phone away and get back to work. I made a point to place both IDs on a table. I stared at them both for a few seconds and knew for a fact they were both sitting there side by side. I was completely alone in the building as I continued working and bagging up the scraps. Maybe 5 minutes later, I find the fire department ID again. I stare at it absolutely bewildered and look back at the table, and only one ID, the driver's license, was sitting there. The fire ID was buried deep under wood and trash and nails, like all the way at the bottom. There's no way it could have caught on my clothing accidentally because I had to pick up boards to get to it. I looked around and was in shock. My coworkers came back in moments later, and I was just staring with a dropped jaw. Welcome to the Matrix, I guess. I have 2 very distinct glitch in the Matrix stories from a few years ago, but this is the one that fucks with my head the most. A few years ago, I was playing a game on my 3DS when I had the sudden urge to play Scribblenauts. I loved that game as a kid and had it on my DS, but I hadn't seen it in years, so I decided to look for it. First, I checked my 3DS case, which had all my games in it. It wasn't there, so I closed it, put it down, and went to my room to continue looking. I searched for probably 10 or so minutes before eventually giving up. I went back downstairs, and there it was. Sitting on top of my 3DS case that I had just searched was a copy of Scribblenauts. There is absolutely no way I missed it while I was looking through my 3DS case, and there's absolutely no way that I found it and then put it on top of the case. Also, I was house-sitting for my parents, so I was home alone for about a week when this happened, so there's no way somebody was just trying to mess with me. I'll add this to the impressive and growing list of glitches since moving into this place a little over a year ago. I was cat-sitting for a couple of weeks. To simplify the visual, my place is laid out in a circle. I kept 2 doors shut that led to the stairs so that my place looks like a Pac-Man. Imagine my surprise when I got up, was standing at one of the doors, and heard a meow from the other side. I opened the door, and sure enough, there's a cat there. I go around the corner, and yep, the other door is open. To give some context on that door, about a week previous, I tried to open that door and thought it was deadlocked from the other side because it was so hard. This time of year, the door's warped because of weather, so it sticks. It wasn't until I went to the other side and solved it was in fact not deadlocked that I realized just how stuck the door gets. I immediately shut the door and deadbolted it. I texted Cat Mom about the incident and jokingly asked if they had a habit of opening doors. I told her I was deadbolting the door, and if it opens again, we have bigger problems. I went from the door to my couch and laid down to nap. About a half an hour later, I woke up to 2 cats bolting out of the room. Both leapt up on top of the couch above me, crouched down, and stared at the entrance to the room. I was like, what the hell is going on? So I go in the room and to see what they knocked over or broke, but instead found that the once dead-bolted door was wide open. 3 to 4 times that night, the cats came zooming out of the room as if something chased them. I say that because they weren't chasing each other. Rather, they ran together and either hid or perched near me, staring into the room. They wouldn't go back in again. I went to my dentist this afternoon. They have a small waiting area split into a larger side with 5 chairs and a coffee table and a smaller side with 2 chairs and a small end table. I walked through this area to the counter, about 10 steps, and checked in. I then turned around and headed to a chair in the larger area. I noticed a small stack of magazines on the coffee table. The top magazine was an issue of People with Meghan and Harry and Kate and William on the cover. It caught my attention for a few reasons. 1, most medical offices have gotten rid of magazines lately, and 2, someone had blacked out one of Kate's teeth, which struck me as funny as the magazine was in a dentist's office. I briefly considered picking it up, but decided not to as I figured I would only have a few minutes to wait. Well, I ended up waiting over 20 minutes. During this time, I never left my chair. I played on my phone a bit and just sat and looked around the office. I looked at the coffee table and it was totally empty. No People magazine, nothing. I looked at the other tables and counters and it was not there. Just poof, gone. I remember the cover so vividly. I even looked it up when I got home and found the issue, March 23rd, 2020. I really wish I had picked it up. Now. I was driving southbound and was coming onto a 4-way major intersection. I was about 200 meters away from the intersection, and there was 2 cars in front of me, also going southbound. One of them was on the left forward-going traffic lane, and the other was on the right forward-going lane. For clarity, the southbound side has 3 lanes, 2 forward-going and 1 left turn. The northbound side was the same format. On the northbound side of the road, there was an SUV on the left turn lane that was peeking out, waiting for the cars going southbound to pass. The car turning left started to turn too early and hit the rear third of the car that was closest to it on the southbound lane. But it literally went through it. I couldn't believe my eyes. I felt like the Matrix corrected itself. It literally felt like a real-life version of Ping in games where you crash into something due to internet issues, but the game corrects you to your right spot. Of course, the Occam's razor explanation could be something like this. It was late at night, and because I was tired and at a distance of 100 to 200 meters, I may have been tricked by the lights of the cars and the motion of both myself and the other cars. Either way, I now have a real story. I, 19-year-old male, am a flight attendant. I was spending the night at a fairly old and somewhat creepy hotel. This happened about mid-February of this year. I get up the next day to get ready for work. It was probably about 4:30 a.m. I went to go take a shower, and I set my underwear on the counter and get into the shower. I was in the shower for maybe 15 minutes and felt totally alone and heard no noises, but when I came out of the shower, the pair of underwear I set on the counter was missing. I didn't hear the bathroom door open or any other noises, and my room was exactly how I left it before I took a shower. My suitcase and tote bag wasn't rummaged through, and none of my other belongings were missing. When I got out of the bathroom, I thought I must have just left them somewhere else than I thought I did. But then I looked some more. I took the bed sheets off my bed and looked everywhere and couldn't find them. I continued getting ready and thought I would stumble across them. Finally, I thought I heard deep breathing coming from the direction of my bed. However, once I stood still, I realized it could have been the wind from outside. I look under it, nothing, except for the fact that the box spring looked as if it had a tear in it. Most hotels now have the bottom of the bed blocked off so no one can hide under the bed. When checking my rooms, I usually just stick my foot under the bed so my shoe would hit it and I know it's there. I also usually leave my hotel door propped open by my suitcase so I could easily run out of my room if something were wrong when checking my room to ensure my personal safety. Could someone have been in my hotel room with me? The room was untouched, totally clean, and smelled like hotel rooms usually do. How could someone have come into my bathroom without me noticing? I didn't have music playing since it was so early in the morning. I usually check my hotel rooms, but this night I forgot to when I got there. There were no other signs of life in the room other than just what I thought was me, myself, and I. I didn't feel like I was being watched, which was a feeling I've had a few times at different hotels. For example, I couldn't sleep because I felt like I was being watched in my hotel room in Indianapolis, Indiana. I now religiously check my hotel rooms, but I was seriously creeped out. This ironically happened in room 420. As an aside, when I'm greeting people onto the aircraft and looking them up and down as a potential able-bodied assistant, I will look at them and acknowledge them. However, when they are deplaning, some of the people getting off are people I don't remember greeting, seeing ever in my life, or people I remember seeing in the cabin throughout the flight. Some days are pretty trippy. To somewhat preface this story, I want to start by saying I have had a few small glitches prior to this one. Usually I was able to explain the missing remote or phones that would reappear in obvious locations as just being overlooked. That ability to explain off these phenomenon as coincidence would suddenly change. At this point, I had been a mailman in my hometown for a little over 4 years. As anyone who comes into the post office may know, when you first start out, you're usually stuck on the least desirable routes. On and off for that time, I was typically on the route where this glitch occurred and had become familiar with most of the residents. At the start of the route, and like clockwork, I would pass by an elderly lady walking her dog. She was of average height, skinny, with short white hair. Her dog, who also looked older, was a smaller beagle who wore a little pink collar. Every morning as I delivered this street's mail, she would walk her dog without even slightly acknowledging me. Weeks went by where I would wave or smile as I rode past, but she never returned the gesture. I would just ride past her somewhere along the sidewalk, and when I got to her house, drop off her mail, grab her outgoing, and usually place her package of presumably medicine on the porch. One day, as I'm headed to the start of the street, I can see, I'll call her Mrs. Smith, again walking her dog. As I got closer, though, something seemed off. Her pace was slightly faster, and her entire stride seemed more energetic. When I came down the other side of the street that she was coming up, she called out to me. "Hey, mailman, if you have any mail for me, I'll go ahead and take it." She said all this waving and smiling. The dog and collar was the same, but this wasn't Mrs. Smith. She was slightly taller, with much longer gray hair and glasses. Taken a bit aback, she again confirmed she would get the mail for $12.45. As I rode off, I thought it was strange because I knew Mrs. Smith lived alone. Only her cat was in the yard, only her name was on the mail, and any time I left any other name of mail in her box, she kindly wrote return to sender on it. I completely chalked it up to her being a relative or caretaker and thought no more about it. That was until this new lady was there every morning, again, like clockwork. For the next few days, I was greeted with smiles, waves, exclamations about the beautiful weather, all while she was walking her dog. Then one morning, she had medicine to sign for. I was running behind on the route and didn't see her walking down the sidewalk, so I knocked on her door. The skinnier white-haired lady didn't answer. It was the same grayish-haired lady I had been talking to for the past week who answered. I said hello and that I had a package for Mrs. Smith to sign for, and was she home? She chuckled and said, "I'm Mrs. Smith," and thanked me for always getting her outgoing mail. I was stunned. This wasn't the lady that was always there in the beginning. I asked where was the other white-haired lady. She asked, "Who?" I said the other lady I used to see walking your dog. She looked confused and confirmed she lived alone and that other than her middle-aged son didn't have any visitors. Again confused, I just took it for mistaken identity, maybe a neighbor or friend. Then, the very next day, as I started my route, right along the sidewalk was a little old lady. She was of average height, skinny with short white hair. She didn't have glasses, and she was walking a little gray-haired beagle with a pink collar. As I rode past and waved, she never looked up. She didn't smile, she didn't ask for the mail, and she didn't tell me how nice the weather was. I pulled into an adjacent parking lot and watched her for the next 5 minutes walk down the sidewalk into 1245 and shut the door. Every day for the next 5 months I was on the route, I never saw the gray-haired lady again. Whoever the vibrant lady was at 12:45 during that week, before I realized and asked questions, it wasn't her. It wasn't the real Mrs. Smith. I was walking the dog yesterday, like I do every morning around my normal neighborhood. We do have a lot of desert trees, plants, etc. I was at one end of my street and looked down the street to the other end. We have 4 houses on one side, 5 on the other, including mine. At the end there was a large, white door, clear as day, to the point you could see the detail of light coming through at the side, top, and bottom. My street stops at that street, and that street runs in 2 directions, like a T. We have no sidewalks in our neighborhood. All of the homes are single-story on minimum 1/3 acres. It could not have been a reflection. I could see the houses on both sides where they belonged behind the door. I looked down, then back up, and it was gone. Been thinking about this ever since. What was that door? After reading a few of these, I feel compelled to share. This is my mom's story. We live in a very small town, and it's starting to develop a little bit. We live along one of the main roads in town. The other main road crosses it, and everything is scattered around the different quadrants, like a graph, if you will. Instead of traveling down our road, turning right and down the other main road to get to the grocery store, there is this little connector road, and new businesses are slowly popping up. A few banks have been built, a feeder's supply store, and some type of restaurant looks like it's being built. Street lamps have not been installed yet because of the low traffic, and there's probably 2 stop signs along this approximate 1.5 to 2 mile stretch of road. One night, my mom was going to the grocery store and stopped at the stop sign to turn toward the existing shopping center. She does the whole look both ways before turning, even though there's no reason to be expecting traffic from the right. They're on an empty plot of land where there's no current construction going on. She sees this huge mansion-like house. It has a wraparound porch, beautiful dark brick, all of the exterior lights were on. She's floored because it looks like the inhabitants are moved in. When did they even start construction? She gets gas and groceries from this area frequently and has never seen anything happening on this lot. She goes about her business and goes home the same way, swears she still sees the house. The next day, when the sun is out, she goes down the same road, this time to go to her bank, and boom, no house. She looks for it every time she's in that area. When she gets home from work, I'll read her any comments she receives and let people know if she says anything. Long story short, my mom passed away recently in my home country. My notoriously hard-to-shop-for sister, also in my home country, went to a modern department store to buy mourning wear. A fellow customer, just like a younger version of my mom, overheard her talking to the saleswoman and immediately stepped in and found her a blouse in her size, the kind my mom used to buy for her 35 years ago on overseas trips. A few key points. The department store is recently built and very contemporary. They do not have any vintage stock, the way Neiman's or Nordstrom's don't have forgotten items from the 80s and 90s hiding out in their racks. This is a vibrant, exclusive store with quick turnaround and lots of employees. The cream and white tops looked pristine. The department store is a standalone, not part of a chain or revamped old business. In my home country, vintage is stigmatized. An upscale department store wouldn't want to besmirch their reputation by selling vintage items, even allowing for the very minuscule probability that this was some decades-old leftover stock from a supplier. They fit my sister perfectly. The fellow customer had just reached out into the racks and pulled them out, only knowing the color but no other specifications. After the funeral, I went to the store and met a floor manager in the hopes of buying more items like this for my sister. This was a week after my sister was there. He called up at least 5 sales personnel from the floor. No one could remember having these items. The department store has multiples of pretty much everything in different colors and sizes. Because there are the types of blouses she likes, my sister is always actively on the hunt for them, and she's been unsuccessful for 30-plus years. If it's some kind of resurgence trend, there will be plenty of other similar items. When I visited the store with my sister, she insisted we could leave out of the back entrance. I argued with her that the security won't let customers exit through the back. I was right. It's narrow and very heavily guarded. My sister was quite certain it was possible because the lady who selected the tops for her had disappeared out through the back. When handing the items to my sister, the lady had said something verbatim my mom always told my sister when getting dressed for a special event. Hello, little Vickies. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard and you haven't subscribed already, please do. and hit the like button, as they're both very helpful to my growth here on YouTube. If you have a suggestion or simply want to say hello, please leave a comment below. If you have a story of your own you'd like to share and possibly have read on the channel, send it to me at veronica45stories@gmail.com. Link is also in the description, as are other ways to support the channel if you feel so inclined. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday by 5 p.m. Pacific. Thanks again for being here. I appreciate it beyond measure. And until next time, be good.